employee Will Sommer, but I wanted to flag that this whole show was taped on Tuesday, which means that the whole discussion around the economy and tariffs took place before Trump's new tariff regime came down this week. So keep that in mind as you listen. But obviously, as the economic effects of tariffs trickle down across the country, you can bet we're going to be talking about them soon. But for now, here's my conversation with Will Sommer. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Focus Group podcast. I'm Sarah Longwell, publisher of the...
Wait, I misheard. Hold on.
Enjoy soon. But for now, here's my conversation with Will Sommer. Enjoy. Welcome to the Focus Group podcast. I'm Sarah Longwell, publisher of The Bulwark, and this week is a bit of a potpourri of the ongoing Trump horribles. First, we're going to get some quick reactions to the biggest story of Trump 2.0 so far, Signalgate, and whether or how much voters care about it. Next, because Donald Trump is threatening to run for a third term, we're going to check in on his base's attitude toward him running for this third term and the base's general attitudes toward Trump. And
why is Trump so oddly sycophantic to BB, JQ, Revisit? Not that I believe in it, of course, for Jewish Question. All people in the United States, I'll say this a million times, all people in the United States love Israel because Israel had a really cool story in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And they were like the only modern ally that the U.S. could look towards in the Middle East in terms of like model democracy, you know, in a world of both secular and Islamic dictatorships or theocratic dictatorships. There's some Jewish people in the United States. They mirror our values most, and it was like Israel against the whole world, right? Israel against the entire Arab world. So every old person basically grew up with like a really favorable view of Israel. Now, what Israel does and who they're fighting against has changed dramatically in the past, probably since the 90s, 94, I guess, maybe particularly. And ever since that change, it would be harder for a young person to feel very sympathetic for Israel or to have those same types of feelings. But older people, I think, still are generally incredibly positive when it comes to feelings about Israel. And you wouldn't, that's just, I don't know if those people will ever grow out of those feelings.
And the rest of the MAGA-verse. Thankfully, my guest is well versed in that world. That guest is Will Sommer, the new...
Also, I think for Trump, too, in my opinion, I think Trump looks for what he perceives as being easy wins. When you have little confidence in your ability to be a leader or to get anything done, you look for the things that you know are guaranteed W's. I think that's one of the reasons why he's so scared of Ukraine and Russia is because that's not a guaranteed victory. He doesn't have the courage to lead there. It's the reason why he didn't go to the January 6th protests and show up himself. Is because he was told he shouldn't, it's a bad idea, and he didn't have the courage to say, fuck it, I'm going anyway to support my people or my revolters or whatever. Trump is just not very brave, I think, when it comes to doing stuff like that.
My guest is well versed in that world.
But Israel is an easy support. They're always going to beat the Palestinians up, right?
Rest of the MAGA-verse.
Didn't more Jews vote Dem in 2024? Yes, American Jews tend to be pretty progressive. But Israeli Jews, from everybody that I talk to, I feel like I saw polling on this, like love Donald Trump because Donald Trump just gives Israel a blank check to do whatever they want, like a metaphorical blank check, like, oh, do whatever. The idea that, not to be too anti-neo-Nazi or whatever, I don't care, fucking whatever. But like the idea that Jews around the world are all united or have the same agenda or whatever is just not true. That super ultra progressive, the Marxist poisoning of society, great replacement, whatever bullshit you want to talk about, Jew that exists in the United States, in my opinion at least, has quite a different interest than the very pro-Zionist, like save Israel and give them unlimited funding and everything Jew that exists in Israel. I think these are different people. And I think Jews in Israel the more hardcore you go as like a cultural aspect, I think look disfavorably upon Jews that are in other parts of the world, that are part of the diaspora. Like, we're trying to shore up a demographic advantage in the West Bank. We're trying to defend and protect our country by expanding our demographic majority. Why the fuck are you living in the US? Why the fuck are you living in Europe? Come home, come back to Israel. There's a reason why they do these birthright trips, and they try so hard to bring these Jews back to Israel. And for ones that like the diasporids, that like I make fun of it like that as a joke, but like there is I think negative feelings there the further right you go in Israel about these people.
And at the basis, general attitudes toward Trump and the rest of the MAGA-verse. Thankfully, my guest is well versed in that world. That guest is Will Sommer, the new author of the Bulwark newsletter, False Flag, and author of the book, Trust the Plan, The Rise of QAnon and the Conspiracy That Unhinged America. Hey, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so coming on this show is a bit of a hazing ritual for the new Bulwark hires, but thanks for being here anyway. You have to be.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled. I mean, I think there's a lot of great topics to discuss, so yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here in general. Okay, so one defining feature of this last election was that a soft version of conspiratorial thinking went.
Trump pressuring the Fed to lower interest rates. Hate when they make the sequel the same as the original. Start tariff war, pressure the Fed, overstimulate the economy till there's no brakes. Global pandemic, global inflation. Yeah, he did it his first term as well. Donald Trump was constantly bullying the Fed to drop interest rates. It's pretty fucking horrible, but...
mainstream. Like, we saw it all over the place. It wasn't just sort of confined to the fever swamps of QAnon. And so how has the right-wing media ecosystem touched the rest of the culture over the last few years? Because I feel like it used to be kind of isolated and then metastasize. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of became mainstream on the right, whatever. I mean, there was when I started covering this stuff in 2016, every so often something would happen. People would say, like, who's this weirdo? You know, explain this guy's deal. But now we see, I mean, the idea that like the majority of the Republican Party believes a presidential election was stolen. I mean, that's so banal to us at this point. But I mean, the idea, I think,
we're a world religion and a world people. Israel is a terrible idea. You're either not a real Jew or you're one of those voice for peace Jews or whatever. Judaism was like a world religion, and they were a world people, people who were discriminated in every single part of the fucking world. I mean,
2020. I just think these conspiracy theories have become really common. You know, that we have, you know, whether it's about vaccines or, you know, anything sort of the moment, there's a conspiracy theory to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that over the period of time I've been doing focus groups, I have watched. I've actually developed a theory about it. You may have seen me do it. It's called the Republican Triangle of Doom, which is the toxic and symbiotic relationship between the elected Republican officials, the right-wing infotainment media, and the voters. Because your point about the 70% of people who believe the election was stolen, that's not something that happens just... You don't start that way, right? The election's not over and 70% of Republicans believe it was stolen. It happens by there being sort of a mutual reinforcing way in which some segment, the MAGA faithful, demand.
Not just, though, this all comes from Donald Trump. This comes from Donald Trump directly. I also love that we're getting to see so many real world experiments of how populism plays out. Remember, this is something I've said for 6, 7, 8 years, I think. And hopefully I'm right, but we'll see, that the way that populism works is you have a very angry population. They rally behind a figure who's going to stand up against the system, and they're going to finally set everything right. But then the issue with populism, and the way that it always goes, is people realize, oh, systems are complicated for a really good reason. The populist figure that we elected actually can't fix anything, let alone everything. And now we've just wasted our time, and we have to go back to the system because we realize, oh, fuck, shit exists for a reason, and we probably have to work within the system if we want to make real, measurable, impactful change in the country. And that's like that's the path that populism tends to take. And we're hopefully kind of sort of seeing that play out in real time.
Right, that they say the election was stolen. They're like, I demand this from my elected leaders. So the elected leaders start to say, yeah, well, looks fishy. And you get people like Ted Cruz or Kevin McCarthy, people that are seen as more mainstream Republicans saying, yeah, I think that this election was stolen. And then that bleeds over to another section of voters that says, well, if Kevin McCarthy says the election was stolen, maybe something must be, happening. And also those elected officials need the right-wing infotainment media because that gives them access to their voters, especially their most fervent ones. Now it becomes this radicalizing, reinforcing mechanism.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, you think about these issues that sort of start out in a non-political or a bipartisan way and then become very polarized. Like I think of Ukraine, for example. Like immediately after the invasion, there were so many Republicans, even a lot of Republican voters. I mean, the vast majority.
That were supportive of Ukraine is what he's going to say right after it happened. And then that flipped so quickly and so violently.
Were supportive of U.S. aid to Ukraine, stuff like that. And then you start to see a couple people in the right-wing media who often took very pro-Russia stances already kind of start picking away at it. And then over the years, it picks up steam where it becomes sort of accepted on the right that it's like, oh, no, we don't support Ukraine. You know, that is sort of the reflex position. And
I also think that as we get further away from this moment in history, I'm on a fucking epic amounts of copium right now, I feel. But hopefully, as we get further away from this moment in history, I think it might also give, hopefully, people the ability to look back and go, oh, that's how Nazism happens. Oh, it really could be any group of people that get brainwashed by some fucking insane and unhinged ideology. Oh, this isn't impossible for even us, right?
And so in these ways, I think you can see, just
what is the worst thing Trump has done in 2025? If I had to rank things, bro, that's so hard. I couldn't give you a worse. Top 3, though. The tariff war shit is definitely up there in the top 3. The deportation of citizens without due process by the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act to say that we're at war with Venezuela is definitely and probably a top 5 or top 3. And the calling out of particular law firms in order to extort them for pro bono work for the administration in order to drop the executive orders against the law firms is a top 3 or top 5. It's like, those would be the 3 that would come to the top of my head. Any of these 3, I think, should get you Nuremberged, like impeachment at minimum, and then some sort of criminal conspiracy at worst, or exile or something. It's just like,
that is sort of the reflex position. And so in these ways, I think you can see, just a personal story. I was a young Republican long ago. And
you and me both, brother.
and I would listen to like talk radio and stuff, and I would see like the crazy stuff they were talking about. And for me at the time, it didn't seem that crazy. But I mean, it was like Michael Savage would say, like, we got to like
shit, my people.
China and stuff like this. And this was, 4th, 5th most popular talk radio host in the country. And I thought, then I look at Congress and they're talking about like tax cuts, deficit reduction. And I thought there's this gap here between what the base wants and what talk radio is telling it wants and that they're really whipped up about, and then what Congress is putting in place, the Republicans. And so then I thought, at some point there's going to something's got to give. And what it was Trump, with someone who actually arrived and said to the base, yeah, you can have whatever you want.
That's a good point. I mean, I used to talk about this a lot, but I actually haven't thought about it in a little bit. The world that we inhabited as young Republicans, and I'm not going to ask you how old you are. I actually don't want to know how much younger than me you are.
Sure.
But there was always a recessive gene in the Republican Party that you kind of had to give a sop to, right? This is your Rush Limbaugh listeners. It was, Pat Buchanan, and then like eventually sort of Sarah Palin. Sometimes we call them populists, whatever. But there was always this part of the Republican Party. And at some point, it did become the dominant gene in the Republican Party. And there's a theory that I'm not entirely sure whether I think this is exactly right, but I certainly think there's elements of truth to it, that both parties had kind of had their crazy people. Like
they did, but for some reason, and political commentators are finally catching up to this, for some reason, something kept it in check on the Democratic side. It didn't seem that way on social media, but like the wacky post-Marxist progressives and whatever the fuck, the people that Jordan Peterson talked about, those people were somehow, they just never got that popular on the Democratic side, right? Remember, Bill C-16 was supposed to see the mass incarceration of Canadian citizens for accidentally misgendering people. I'm still waiting on my first arrest. We were supposed to see people who were getting massive amounts of like job pushback and tons of firings over misgendering people. I'm still waiting for my first firing. I'm still waiting to see one person getting fired for misgendering somebody on Axis. Hasn't happened. These people, the right did a good job at making them into boogeymen, but they never materialized in a way that the right claimed and the left, I think the center left kind of feared.
When I was coming up as a young Republican, it was the Democrats who were kind of the anti-vaxxers. It was like people, I would think of them as sort of,
hippies.
I don't know, people living in remote places in Arizona who were like anti-vaxxers and that would say there's, weird things in all the food, so don't eat anything. And they were super anti-establishment. And it feels like what's happened is all of those people have realigned so that the Republican Party now contains.
I don't think those people have realigned. I think that it's a different type of person who is the conservative anti-vaxxer. They have like similar-ish positions in terms of like not trusting the establishment, I think, but they come from like very different areas. Kind of like how like I don't like calling Hassan and his ilk like anti-Semitic, even though I think in practice they're undistinguishable from anti-Semitics now. But the way that they get to anti-Semitism is a lot different than the way that like a Nazi would get to anti-Semitism. So it's not quite the same thing.
Everybody who's interested in conspiracy theories and the Democratic Party, they're conspiracy theories. I'm trying to remember what really good ones they might have these days. And I'm not coming up because they've got sort of they have the sort of college lounge talk.
There's also, it's such a multifaceted issue and it's hard to measure the magnitude, like how much of an effect each of these things had. But something that was really bad, I think maybe more for conservatives than liberals somehow, I don't know why, but social media just obliterated the conservative mind. I don't know why they were more susceptible to it, because I think if you would have asked me to make a prediction a long time ago, I would say, liberals growing up would probably be more susceptible because they're probably more likely to be online, they're more likely to be in these spaces. Conservatives had like this kind of fundamental distrust, I think, of the internet. Like growing up, I remembered my Catholic school. Who remembers doing projects? Did you guys ever have this? I don't know if I'm showing my age or maybe my school was like this. Like you would do a science project and they'd say you can have 6 sources. Only 2 can be sourced from the internet. The other 4 have to come from magazines or books or something, right? Like there was this huge distrust of the internet. And I felt like conservatives always leaned more into that distrust than liberals did. So, but somehow the online world became the absolute savior of right-wing discourse. Like it just dominated, and I don't know why or how that happened.
That's different than the conspiracy theories that people like to marinate in on the right now.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, people love to say, when I'm obviously covering conspiracy theories, people say, well, doesn't the left have a lot of crazy conspiracy theories too? The answer is not really, and certainly not at the level that it's been embraced by members of Congress or on MSNBC, stuff like that. And so I think you're right that, people with a sort of an anti-establishment or a distrust of the system, for the most part, have migrated over to the right. And in many ways, that's sort of a challenge to Democrats, because often these conspiracy theories arrive from a somewhat reasonable place of thinking perhaps corporations don't have our best interests at heart, things like that. And then it becomes, that's why they're creating these poisonous vaccines or they're poisoning the food supply, stuff like that. And so there's often sort of a kernel of truth to it, and then it spins out into sort of RFK land.
Yeah, and RFK is a good example, right? Or Tulsi Gabbard. Like these are all people who used to be institutional Democrats or Democrats of some kind that now politically feel more at home in the Republican Party because their extreme views are welcome there and they are no longer.
I bet you know all about the Dewey Decimal System. Was that like the number lettering scheme that they had in libraries to find books? Fuck all that shit. Talk radio hosts they knew moved to the internet. They were forced to the internet and they grew large communities. I don't know if that's true. I'm literally extrapolating just from my mom's experience here. I wonder if you could find the first VOD where I said this. I remember a long time ago, years ago, like 10 years ago, my mom had said something. I'd asked her about, like, did she hear some crazy thing on Glenn Beck? And my mom told me, I don't listen to Glenn Beck anymore. And at the time, I'd assumed, sick, this is awesome. She stopped listening to crazy conservatives. And then I slowly found out over the years, she's just on she gets all of her news from crazy Facebook memes. And it was even worse.
Longer welcome in the Democratic Party. So you can see the shift happening sort of right in front of our eyes. So I want to listen to how Biden to Trump voters talk about the big story this week in The Atlantic about top officials, including the Vice President of the United States, using Signal, which is a commercial sort of messaging app, to plan a bombing.
Oh, that's true as well. Somebody said, some reason. Lefties didn't lose it equals Russia aligned rhetorically more with insane right-wingers, then dumped a small country's GDP worth of dollars on online content. It's hard to know how much the foreign influence stuff affected things as well. That's true. I don't know.
Signal, which is a commercial sort of messaging app, to plan a bombing on the Houthis. Let's listen.
The information wasn't destructive that got...
Top officials, includers, talk about... so you can see the shift happening sort of right in front of our eyes. So I want to listen to how Biden to Trump voters talk about the big story this week in The Atlantic about top officials, including the Vice President of the United States, using Signal, which is a commercial sort of messaging app, to plan a bombing on the Houthis. Let's listen.
The information wasn't destructive that got leaked. Nobody got hurt. The mission went the way it was supposed to go. Whether or not the information was classified, I do want them to investigate, as they should, but the left is, jumping on it.
I played that House clip or whatever about his investigation when House was going to get fired because of that episode where Chase got stabbed to make a point at the end, but I lost the message because it took too long to get to it. But the outcome-oriented view of some people is so stupid. And intuitively, I think they even know that it's not the correct view to have. It doesn't matter what the outcome was. It doesn't matter if the operation was successful, and it doesn't matter if it got leaked to somebody or not. What matters prospectively, right, looking forward, is that they were engaged in behavior that could have allowed that to happen when that shouldn't have been the case, right? It's such a weird way of, this intuitively, every human knows this, that outcome-oriented things aren't actually that important, right? Like if I tell you I drove drunk for the past 3 weeks, and somebody's like, bro, what the fuck? You're like, oh, no, it's okay. I didn't get in an accident. I didn't get into any accidents. Nobody's listening to that going, oh, okay. I mean, as long as you didn't get into any accidents, it's probably fine. You're fine. You're okay. Nobody's thinking that, but for some reason they try to make it work here.
As if it's the end of the world. This was their opportunity they've been waiting for. So it's all over the news. But one thing that it did show was that they, especially the vice president, they're putting America first. There was nothing in those secret messages that was hypocritical compared to what they say in public. And like I said, it went off without
the ability that they tried to spin this into a positive, and you hear at least with this guy that it worked, is unfathomable to me. No, actually, I can fathom it. Just kidding. That's a hyperbolic statement. I guess I can easily fathom that.
A hitch. I don't know why that reporter specifically was added. I mean, they said he has the same initials as someone else that may have been added or whatever, but he's from the Atlantic. They hate Trump. I don't know why he got added. So there's some questions about why was his information even in the guy's phone to begin with? But it's a big deal enough that it should be investigated, but it's not as big as
the liberals want it to be.
That it was definitely a screw up, massive screw up. And I heard John Ossoff talk about since they noted all of the times of the bombings that the pilots could have got hurt, they could have backtracked about where the planes would be coming from and injured some of our guys over there. So in terms of that makes me uneasy and gives me pause. But the fact that nothing like that did happen, it went off without a hitch. I like it. Yeah, but it was definitely a massive screw up, and I don't like it. It doesn't need to be a thing in the future.
I actually do use Signal to talk to my son, and he does national security for the military. We don't talk about his job
stuff.
It's just okay, I'm going to send you a package. And I think for just the regular military personnel that knows you're not supposed to put out any information out there, I think they should have known better.
I hate this gentleman amnesia effect type thing where you trust the administration, and then when they stumble into an area that you know about, you're like, wait a second, this is really wrong. They should know better about this. But then as soon as it's in an area that you're not familiar with, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, this is probably fine. That's not a big deal. Who cares about this, right? the people that end up having the most issues with what Trump and his people are doing are the ones who, actually have some experience with a particular thing being spoken about. It reminds me of that thing on Twitter I read where somebody was like, I kind of trusted Elon when he was talking about rockets. I kind of trusted Elon when he was talking about cars, but holy fuck, when Elon started talking about software, like I don't trust anything that Elon says now because I know stuff about software. That guy that tweeted that, yeah.
They should have known better. There should have been more of a understanding that, when you're speaking about any type of information, that it shouldn't just be out there in the atmosphere. And I want to say that those texts were still, they weren't deleted right away. They were still there. So, that's a huge national security issue. For me, I'm a mom. My son's in the military, and I know that he can't tell us the things that he does, and he knows that he can't say the things that he does. So it just makes sense that people need to, I'm sorry, but there needs to be consequences.
I thought when I first heard the news that it was not real because
this is what initially broke me away from Musk almost a decade ago in college. He clearly had no idea about how vacuums worked with his Hyperloop. Oh, I haven't even heard him talk about that in particular. But yeah, this is a huge problem that I've tried to express with people, but I guess, I'm just a fucking college dropout, so what do my opinions on that matter? But the fact that, like, in listening to Elon, it really, truly I do not feel like I've ever in my entire life heard a single insightful thing from this person ever. Like, I've never heard him say anything where I'm like, oh, that's actually a really interesting take. Like, I feel like I'm listening to a man of great genius, give me his unfiltered opinion about a particular thing. I don't think I've ever I don't think I've ever heard Elon say something where I'm like, oh yeah, that's fucking A, dude. It's kind of sad.
Heard the news that it was not real because at that level of security and branch of the government, I think you should have better sense than that, than to make that small mistake. That's like if someone messes up an order for you at Jimmy John's, but not to mess up something when it comes to national security. I'm not from the military or really have any background in it. And I just really got into politics and reading about and hearing about stuff this year. But still, I think someone should be held responsible. If it's not the person that put together the group chat, it should be the person that accidentally added his name, because that's a mistake that if they made it once, they can make it again.
Or have already made it.
All right. So, Will, there were 3 people in this group, surprisingly, who had heard nothing about the Signal chat fiasco.
That's insane.
But the rest of them...
For anybody who hadn't heard anything about it, you should have asked them about Hillary's emails. I just would have been curious to... Jesus.
Were kind of mixed there. You had some people who seemed to have...
Like that story came and left in a week or less, 4 or 5 days. But that's probably one of the more hilarious-ish, as funny as it is horrible, like security blunders, probably almost in U.S. history. Another one I can think of is, I think we picked somebody in like the CIA to try to figure out, because we thought there was like a Russian spy in the CIA, and we picked some dude to like investigate it, and the dude that we picked, I think, ended up being a Russian spy. Like there was some shit like that. That's kind of funny. But
got the messaging right from what the right wants them to think about it. Then there were other ones who just on their face thought it was a real problem and wanted accountability. But something like this happening to me is always an interesting study in how the right-wing messaging machine kicks into gear and sort of tries to shape something like this for their voters. What did you see in the wake of the Signal Gate?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's these times that are so interesting where there isn't sort of a pat response to go to because it's something that's so strange. I think of like the Access Hollywood tape, things that are just you never could have imagined. And so people, at least for a couple days, kind of struggle to come up with the messaging. In this case, obviously the administration's message shifted for a couple days. We heard someone in the focus group there who said, well, the strike went off. No
harm, no foul.
No one was killed, right, exactly. And so in that way, whatever, let's move on. And there was also a bit of, the Democrats are playing politics with this. I think this kind of recurs as an issue for voters who seem to support Trump, is this idea of kind of like both sides are the same, or like, Democrats might do the same thing, or it's kind of like a mud pit or something, it's just a
The Democrats are pouncing on this and politicizing it.
Exactly. On the other hand, I was interested to see that, and it makes sense that these are Biden to Trump voters, that other ones are saying, this is an issue. There should be an investigation. Someone should be fired.
Yeah, I was sort of pleasantly, I don't know if surprised is the right word, but because it is such a blatant
fuck up
violation of our national security, and I think people's initial reactions were to be horrified by this. And I do think one of the reasons that you didn't get as many people, because I often do focus groups after a big event.
I'm an intelligence guy. This is the largest in history. This reduces allied confidence and puts lives at risk. Glossing over it is horrible, and a bill banning Signal should have happened right away. I don't think it could be there is no bill that needed to be passed. There was no legislation that needed to be passed. The policies and everything are already on the book for why this should have never happened. They just needed to be followed. That's really it, I think. Right.
And it's amazing to me how quickly sort of conventional wisdom can congeal on the right and a defense for whatever the thing is.
I hope people recognize or realize this more. People need to start realizing this more, that I don't think it's organic. I think it's controlled, that the right I know there's a political story people could want me to read about putting out talking points, but this lockstep, top-down messaging approach where every single conservative pundit has the new talking points that they're firing out almost immediately is insane.
That Trump has done. And I think this time, because the administration itself didn't have one explanation, it had like 7. Mm-hmm. It was like Pete Hegseth was like, this was not classified information.
Oh, yeah. It's very weird living through a time where a recession is coming and all the depression with it, but watching people go on with their lives like nothing has changed, knowing they will all be changing their lives in a few weeks when the reality sets in via firings of friends and family members or colleagues, etc. Honestly fucking weird. Watching people laugh and watch movies or play games, just kind of passing this off. I understand why, but this is so obvious, it's kind of insane to me. I mean, at the risk of infuriating my fan base, and I know you guys hate it when I say this, but I think that in a lot of ways, life has improved in so many ways for everybody, such that when we think things are horrible, a lot of the times that's just us speaking from our improved standards of living, and the horrible thing we're talking about isn't really that bad. It's just the only thing we have to complain about. See comp sci majors complaining about the current job market. I'm half joking. Actually, I'm not joking at all there. But back in the day, a recession or a depression meant that you couldn't afford food, and you had people that were grimy and starving, and it was just a really, really horrible ordeal. But the last few we've had, it's bad for sure, and people lose their jobs, people lose their homes, but we have improved our social safety nets quite a bit. We have improved access to a lot of goods and services quite a bit. We have done a better job at expanding that, even though people, for whatever political reason, don't like to acknowledge that. And so yeah, I think that was a big motivating reason. I'm saying this with no formal econ background, but I think that was a big motivating reason for why economists were trying to find a different way to define recession. 2 quarters of GDP contraction doesn't really mean anything to an average American, kind of, but what 2 quarters of GDP contraction would mean to other parts of the market, like mass firings or the inability to afford things, right? That probably was true in the past, probably not as true anymore, right? Which is why I think economists were looking for other ways to define what is a recession, because it's possible now that you can have a recession, but nobody actually really kind of feels the effects of it, which I think is unintuitive. So.
And, or at
least they don't feel the effects of it in the way that you read about it in, not Huckleberry Finn, Catcher in the Rye? Was that a Great Depression book? I think that might have been.
Lying reporter, it's just, and people were like, they already confirmed that this is real and true. And they were like, okay, different one. Now it's well, the plan was perfect, but, we don't know how we got on there. They actually did. There was 3 people who didn't know anything, and there were other people who knew quite a bit. And when something gets to that level of detail, you can see that a story like this is one where Democrats need to figure out how to continue to press on this, because they do have people who voted for Trump who don't think it was great. But I guess my question is, having watched Democrats try to sort of puncture the outer edges of the Trump coalition that are still open to persuasion have been great at that. And they're not like Benghazi good at making something stick, or her emails making something stick. So do you think, though, that this could be one of those things that they make stick if they keep driving it?
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think we see from those voters that there is some interest and sort of a feeling that like the story still has yet to play out, that we haven't gotten like the consequence that I think at least some of those voters seem to feel is warranted. It's interesting you bring up Benghazi, Emailgate, many other things. Because I remember I was thinking about this in light of the Signal saga. Even with those cases, even as someone who follows this stuff pretty closely, I would say, like, wait, what is like the theory of the case here about Benghazi? Like, what is it that Hillary Clinton supposedly did nefariously rather than perhaps incompetently or just unthinkingly? And you look into it, and it's like, well, that's not true. Like whatever the
every conservative conspiracy is like that. When you look into it, it's like, wait a second, this doesn't seem to like be true at all. There's almost nothing here. Kind of weird. Where were the criminal charges if she gave 11 hours of testimony? Like,
maximum version of culpability is clearly not going to be true. And yet they managed to drag these things on for years and years. Now,
my mom was literally sending me things about Benghazi, I think yesterday.
Certainly, I'm sure if Democrats control the House, there will be a Signal investigation, and that helps a lot. But even now, I feel like the Signal thing is fading a little bit. The classic Trump defense of, don't admit anything, no one resigns, seems to have weathered the storm, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, it is, they do seem to understand, and I would say people who are in the communications business are often...
What is this she sent me 2 hours ago? The video Hillary Clinton does not want you to see.
John F. Kennedy Jr., he was declared the front-runner for the New York Senate seat back in 1999. Days later, his plane crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, and his rival, Hillary Clinton, was elected senator. Mary Mahoney was a Clinton White House intern. She knew enough of the inner workings of Bill's sexual advancements to be a star witness during the Clinton impeachment trials. She was brutally executed at a Starbucks she was managing in 1997. In 1993, White House counsel Vince Foster was found dead in Fort Marcy Park near D.C. He supposedly killed himself, and among a lengthy list of potential foul...
It's one of the reasons why I was so unhinged for a while. I guess I'm not as much anymore, but it comes and goes in waves. One of the reasons why I'm so hateful of these fucking people. This Instagram reel, I guess my mom watched. It's referring to, I don't know if you remember this conspiracy theory. It's the Hillary Clinton kill list.
May all of them rest in peace. So here's the question for you, because millions of people are not convinced Hillary Clinton is
again with the other people, millions
including
of people.
Myself. If you want to do that, I'm not worried about.
Don't try to make it about some bozo who put up a website. Put in your own words.
Here's a question for you, Guy. It's a very simple question for you. So, how is it when you think about other candidates? Okay.
If you are some person who has one of these jackasses on the internet showing up at their doorstep saying, "Tell me about the death of your father, how did Hillary Clinton?" We had someone walk into a pizzeria in Washington with a gun because of assholes like this.
I've heard that phrase before by other people. Play it again. Play it again. I've heard this phrase.
By the way, what's the whole Benghazi? Let's get the whole Benghazi.
No, it's the phrase.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night decided to go kill some Americans?
You disagree with her point here?
Difference at
Play
this
that again.
point doesn't
You disagree with this point?
Play that from the 10-second mark. Not
Yeah, play it from the 1 second.
He did this where he started, I don't know if I can find it. He just started like reading all these names.
Barry Seal, Johnny Longhorn.
Can you read me the URL you're reading? Can you read me the URL you're reading?
We'll send you the most credible source you can look it up.
Let your listeners know what you're reading.
We'll put the link below. We'll put the link below.
Just tell me so I know what I'm
Herschel
responding
Friday,
to.
Kevin Ivey, Dan Henry, Keith Coney, and these were part of the Ivy Henry case. Keith McCaskill.
What's the Ivy Henry case?
You can look it up. Ivy Henry case. So Gregory Collins, Jeff Rhodes, James Millen, Richard Winter, and then you got the close bodyguards, Major William Barkley, Captain Scott Reynolds, Brian Hanley, Tim Sable, General William Robertson,
You don't even know what you're reading a list of. How is this?
Densberger, Robert Kelly, Colonel Gary Rose, Steve Wills, Robert Williams, Conway LeBlue, Todd McKeon. I'm done.
What did my mom send me yesterday? Doge has found $60 billion in Defense Department contracts paid to non-defense companies owned by Democrat lawmakers. I see pictures of AOC and Pelosi here. They weren't even trying to hide their corruption and fraud. What is this?
They specifically...
The same Southern District of New York that is now hiding the Epstein files that reveals crimes against children is also the Southern District of New York that had possession of and hid Anthony Weiner's laptop. What is this?
Gates has been caught red-handed
Bill
funding
Gates.
a fraudulent petition aimed at blocking Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation as the head of the HHS. The scandal involves fake signatures, dark money, and a massive attempt to manipulate public opinion.
How could you block a Senate confirmation with
It all
a...
started with a letter organised by the so-called Committee to Protect Healthcare, claiming it was signed by over 17,000 doctors, urging the Senate to reject RFK Jr.'s nomination. Sounds credible, right?
So I clicked on the letter. And guess what? I signed it twice. One says Dr. Fake and one says Dr. BS. See for yourself. Anybody, anywhere, can sign this supposed letter repeatedly.
This petition isn't just misleading. It's funded by Arabella Advisors, one of the...
What's this one? A 1996 clip of Chuck Schumer. What's this?
The president directed his trade representative to increase tariffs under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 on $18 billion of imports from China.
So this is called When Democrats Supported Tariffs.
American workers and businesses from China's
And it's got a bunch of clips of Trump smiling in the background. What is this? Oh, Bill Gates.
Kills over 10 million people
2015.
in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
The title for this video is COVID was planned years in advance. How did we know this?
Some structures to deal with this. Millions of people could be adversely impacted.
But also there will be a surprise outbreak.
Fauci.
The next administration, that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with.
Pandemic prevention and preparedness is going to end up being, whether the administration likes it or not, a priority, a top priority.
Trump is now president. When he faces his first major epidemic, as his predecessors have, he will likely project his impulsivity, xenophobia, and cavalier attitude towards facts to over 52.
Does your mom send you this? My mom sends me stuff like this every single day. Biden gave $40 million every week to the Taliban. This is just stuff I've gotten yesterday from her.
This is unbelievable. And explain to me how this is not treason. Watch this.
$40 million per week in taxpayer money is ending up in the hands of the Taliban. Cash is flown by charter jets into Afghanistan. It's auctioned off to the Taliban in order to exchange it for the Afghan currency. From there, the Taliban will get it to the NGOs who have to pay taxes on that money. The NGOs have to be approved by the Taliban. And every time the NGOs spend the money, the Taliban will take a cut. When the money is exchanged for the Afghan currency, the Taliban take a cut. The Taliban also determine who can receive foreign aid. Most of the time, these people are either Taliban or Al-Qaeda. These people are the...
It's all the same, I guess. Defeat Democrats. This is all on Instagram, so these are all Instagram reels. Huge. President Trump has promised to reveal how the 2020 election was rigged, as his team will declassify documents from a collusion hoax. Oh, this is why why the airplanes were crashing.
COVID vaccines turned out to be so dangerous. It killed so many people. It's a fact. I mean, it's in the VAERS program. These are not conspiracy theories. It's like, that's a fact. That it does make you wonder, like, what would you want? I don't want to fly in a plane with vaccinated pilots because I think it's too dangerous. But are there numbers on this?
Oh, yeah.
So tell me what they are.
We started getting phone calls. I know somebody that's sick, or I know this, or I know that. So we just put a data collection link up. And it got so intense that I said, you know what? I'm going to stop everything. I'm going to write my dissertation, and I'm going to study the vaccine injury amongst commercial airline pilots. It was about 7 months of data collection, 1,600 plus respondents across the industry. And understand the population is about 80-20 vaxxed, right? My study actually came out about 50-50 because a whole bunch of my unvaccinated friends wanted to help, which watered down my numbers, but it actually makes them that much more powerful. Because at 50-50, if I found this, what would I have found at 80-20? And what I found is commercial airline pilots in the United States are suffering pericarditis and myocarditis at rates exceeding the CDC's national average. And it proved it to a 98%, plus or minus 4 in that regards. But I have the charts from American Southwest and from the Union at United, the disability rates post December of 21 shoot through the ceiling, right? They're off the charts and they're getting worse by the day. The problem is, I went to the union and I said to the national president in an email, and I have it in my dissertation, it's published online. I found
Published online?
We need to address this. And he said, oh, no. You know what? That's in the past. That might be.
The caption for this video is commercial airline pilots in the U.S. are suffering pericarditis and myocarditis at rates exceeding the CDC's national average. So the idea being that maybe all of the recent crashes could be explained by the COVID vaccine. Oh, something on tariffs. Sorry, this is the last one.
The tariffs are on, but here's the truth they're not telling you. The tariffs that Canada levies and imposes right now on U.S. products, this is not new. It's been predating Trump. Milk, 270% tariff. Cheese, 245%. Butter, 298%. Chicken, 238%. Sausages, 69.9%. Lol. Copper, 48% tariffs. Aluminum, 45% tariffs. Steel, 25% tariffs. We tariff their metals more than they tariff ours. Cars, 45%. TVs, 45%. Eggs, 163%.
How does that work for tariffing American cars? Usually tariffs are to protect like your own industry, but we don't have any Canadian car manufacturers.
I don't think they give a fuck. Canadians.
I like how that guy accidentally asked a good question. The guy had no answer.
It's uncanny. All these tariffs have been online from way before Trump. Sure, a lot of it has to do with supply management, and they're based on quotas. It does not absolve the fact that we tariff American goods. We are not for free trade, absolutely not. If not, we would flood the market with American products. In the end, this is nothing.
I also love that the caption on this video, this was a 2-day-old video, it says, the numbers the media won't show you. Canada levies stiff tariffs against us. Like we haven't heard these numbers spammed over and over and over and over and over and over and over again over the past few weeks. We've got something from I Trust the Science is the name of the Instagram account. Breaking. World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab has informed the board he will be resigning per Reuters. Another massive blow to globalism, thanks to President Trump. Schwab has infamously been on a warpath against the United States and conservatism for 5 decades, but his reign is now coming to an end. Good riddance. Trump's best ever speech. Sorry, this is my last one for real. What is this?
Fire. I said, General, how long before we get 100% of the caliphate? He said, sir, 2 years. I said, I can't take it 2 years. And then I flew to Iraq. I met some incredible people, generals. One of them.
I don't care, actually. Never mind. There's just, I don't even know how you could begin to counter stuff like this. Like, there's so much every single day. Like, on every single topic. There are tens of thousands of these accounts that just pump out utter misinformation. My mom said, what is wrong with these people that they would do this? And the post is by Patriot_Phoneman. Breaking. Governor Kathy Hochul now plans to mass release thousands of prisoners early, secondary to her firing thousands of corrections officers. Once again, Kathy Hochul is putting rapists, murderers, and sex offenders above the safety of your family. What a disgrace. Nancy Pelosi staged January 6th. FBI Director Kash Patel has seized phone and bank records for everyone on Pelosi's staff on Jan 6. We believe there's proof that she set the whole thing up. My mom said, she typed, they did. Many of us watched it go down, indicating Pelosi, Cheney, Pelosi's daughter filming them, walking through the Capitol, cackling about what they had set into motion. This was extreme, unadulterated evil. It's just... And that's just on Instagram. Who knows what she sees on Facebook or on Twitter or on... You got a Red Bull. Hold on. Jesus. Somebody asked me if you put a gun to my head, could I change my mom's political views? The problem is that, how do you respond to her text when she sends? I just don't. I love her, but the thing is that like if me and my mom argue for any amount of time, I think the cognitive dissonance is like too much, and it usually just ends in her crying because she'll be so frustrated, which I think in the past was funny. Like I didn't mind because we were always chill afterwards, but now with her Alzheimer's disease, now it's just sad. Because now she feels like she can't, her short-term memory is having more issues, so she has issues bringing up all of the facts that she thinks she knows sometimes, but it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I hate these people.
And very wary, like you want to kill a story like this. You want to put it to bed. You want it to go away. You don't want it to drag on. And I think they have a real instinct for knowing that if you fired somebody, it would raise this to another level of salience. Like those 3 people who haven't heard of this, when Pete Hegseth gets fired, maybe they do hear about it because it is much reported on, much opined about. It's funny though, you hit the weekend and it's like people reset. And then you also get Trump, who says, okay, so this is bad for us. We look like idiots. I know how to get out of this, though. I'm going to tell reporters that I am running for a 3rd term, and I'm going to get them chasing a different story altogether. Which brings us to the next thing, which is Trump tells Kristen Welker this weekend that there are ways he can run for a 3rd term in 2028, and he's not joking.
What are the focus groups going to say? My guess is they're just going to say, oh, he's joking, or he's just doing a debate, the media, and they're taking the bait, or something stupid like this is my guess. It's always a joke until it's not, but then when it's not a joke, then they defend it. It's so crazy how they can live in 2 worlds with everything they say.
When he says this, we must take him literally and seriously on this particular point. So we have been trial ballooning this Trump 3rd term thing in the focus groups, specifically with Trump voters, for a while now. So I want to play some of the sound from a recent group of 2020 and 2024 Trump voters who are even more supportive of Trump than the rest of the GOP. Like, these are his base. We did like a very pro-MAGA group of voters, and we asked them about this. So this group splits between diehards who like want Trump to be king, Trump forever, and people who really like having Trump around, but they get sort of like squeamish and non-committal about the 3rd term thing. So let's listen.
King Trump. Shit, yeah, I'll sell more hats.
I think it's too soon to tell. I think there's a lot of things that are shifting, undoing a lot of the things that Biden did or his people did right before he left office. I'm speculating. I think this will all be for the good. You know, like the tariffs, for example, we got to see over time if we bring some of that industry back into the U.S. and we can add new jobs, and all that's going to take time. So, you know, if things go the way that we're projecting, you know, I would say, yeah, like if he turns things around and we get back on track, lower prices, the economy's doing great, I would definitely consider that. But, you know, if this is all for naught, like we do all these shifts and changes and add tariffs and anger other countries and cause wars or something like that, I'm just going to the extreme. But then I would be like, okay, we might need somebody else to reshift or recalibrate instead.
mean, at first I was like, oh, yeah. Initially I was all for it, thinking, oh, yeah, that would be a great idea. But then I guess I was more.
Oh, wow. Welcome to America. Is the background for my Destiny GG chat, is this black or is this a different color? I noticed for my, oh no, wait. I don't know how this HDR bullshit works. When I go on Twitter on my computer over here, the Twitter background is like super black, like HDR black. But on this computer here, it's not HDR black. But my DGG chat is not HDR black. I have no idea why. It's lighter than the black on Twitter. Oh, okay. That makes sense then. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
We're going to learn about the world.
Is this making fun of liberals or leftists? It's Bo Burnham. I don't think he's like a ultra heavily political guy. It's more like social-ish commentary. Have you watched Inside? No, I don't know what that is. What does that mean? Uh-oh. Is Ryan Macbeth waking up? Oh my fucking god. Okay, quick random meme question that no one will be able to answer. Except maybe somebody will be able to answer. There's literally no point to me asking this question. On Just Works, if you hire somebody and then you send out the email, but then you realize that it's like a different email, you need to do something different. Is there a way to just like cancel this without having to like schedule like a termination and all this bullshit? Is that possible? Does anybody have any idea? It's so fucking annoying. Destiny, from the USA point of view, what's the difference between Ukraine getting NATO membership and Ukraine having European troops there with a US backstop? Aren't they both tripwires for the US joining a future war via Article 5? My understanding is that Article 5 can only be triggered if your soldiers or your territory is attacked in your territory. I don't believe that Article 5 is triggered if your soldiers are attacked in another country. Wait, we can watch this while I do this. Fuck.
A lot of people asked me to comment on President Zelensky's meeting with President Trump on Friday, February 28th, 2025 at the White House. Look, right now I'm sick. I went to urgent care yesterday. They said it's not the flu and it's not COVID. I'm stuffy, I've been coughing, I have a fever, so maybe I have some advanced genetically engineered Romanian freaking rhinovirus that I brought back to me from Europe. But right now I feel like I've been run over by a dump truck. And the fact is that my latest novel, The Last Republic, is on deadline. It has to get sent to the editor, so I need to get that done. So I'm going to make this quick because I need to get back in bed and die. I titled this video, Are We the Baddies?, after a sketch from that British show, That Michael and Webb Look.
Our caps. The badges on our caps. They've got skulls on them. Are we the baddies?
And this comes at an interesting time because I was just in Poland and Romania visiting NATO sites and talking with NATO members. One of the sites that I visited was JTEC, or the Joint Analysis and Education Center. Or Joint Analysis Training and Education Center, sorry, I'm still messed up. It is basically a schoolhouse that's founded by NATO, administered by Poland, and run by Ukraine. The whole idea is that Ukraine has learned a lot over the last 3 years from their war with Russia, and their instructors come to Poland to help teach NATO members what they've learned, things about drone warfare, robotics, unmanned systems. It's a really neat school. It's a great idea for a school, and NATO is learning a lot from these Ukrainian instructors. All right. While I was in Poland, I attended an exercise where I watched dudes in ghillie suits attack a trench line. And that seemed to me like one of the stupidest ideas I've ever heard. Like, why are you wearing some hot-ass ghillie suit to attack a trench line? But what the Ukrainians have found is that wearing a ghillie suit not only breaks up your outline while you're moving across the field to hit the trench, it also lowers your thermal profile, so it makes it harder for drones to spot you. And that's something that Ukraine learned the hard way, and that they're sharing with us now that they have this school, this JTEC. Ukraine never really asked for anything more than weapons and ammunition. They have tested their flesh against metal in order to remain free from the yoke of authoritarianism. And at one point during the White House conversation yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance asked if President Zelensky had ever thanked the U.S. for our help. And yes, Ukraine has said thank you. They helped found JTEC. And it's where we get to learn all of Ukraine's lessons to see how we can apply them to the next war.
Just to be clear, they wanted like a personal thank you, a groveling is what they were looking for.
So not only have they thanked us, they've paid us in information. Also, every time Ukraine fires a Patriot missile, that data is going back to the U.S. So we've learned a lot on how to do air defense from incoming theater ballistic missiles just from that. The funny thing is that while this conversation in the White House is going on, I believe while the meeting was taking place, there was a funeral in Ukraine for a young American, a former Marine who went to Ukraine to volunteer, and he lost his life in the fighting. His name was Ethan Hurtrick. This is how Ukraine says thank you. The real winner in this whole exchange was Russia, who seriously can't believe its luck. I mean, when you are handing content wins to RT, formerly known as Russia Today, you probably need to reevaluate your strategy, right? Kind of the scary thing for me was that my Newsmax colleague, Carl Higbee, posted on Twitter after the exchange saying, America is so back. And while I respect Carl Higbee, I think it's a rather short-sighted view. Mainly because if America is taking the side of Russia in a conflict, it calls into question all American aid. If America could hold back weapon systems because the president feels slighted or snubbed, or the president, the person the president's speaking to isn't doing what he wants him to do, that could put many weapons programs in danger, such as our sale of the F-35 to India. And, you know,
he's dying. It's all over, boys.
The world will be a better, safer place if India has American weapon systems and with India operating the F-35. But why buy the F-35 from America if just saying the wrong thing to the president could get him to cut off your supply of parts? And I think that's the real takeaway from this interaction. If I were Australia, who just agreed to buy 3 Virginia-class submarines from the U.S. instead of buying some of France's submarines, I would seriously start taking a look at France's submarines again. I mean, yes, ours are quieter, but they come with a fondue machine. You know, I wouldn't want to risk a major defense platform on the whims of a man who was looking for what he called good television, right? You know, one of the things that President Trump said to President Zelensky was, "You're not winning this." And for almost 3 years, I have said there is no win. There is lose, and there is lose more. Russia isn't going to win, and Ukraine isn't going to win. Russia literally can't win, because the day the war ends is the day their economy collapses. But if America champions the cause of Russia, or even takes their side, or pursues sanction relief for Russia, then that gives Russia a soft landing and they can lose less. And that's about as close to a win as they're going to get. I think the only way Russia can lose less is if America supports Russia. America is supposed to stand for freedom and democracy, not good television. And the people of Ukraine have made it clear that they do not want to live under the control of Russia. And yet we just handed Russia a victory, essentially for free. Which begs the question, are we the baddies? If you want to help pay for my funeral expenses, grab the wind machine from Amazon or from Audible. It'll still help keep you busy until The Last Republic comes out. Also grab one of my Rock Out with Your Chalk Out aerosol shirts from Bunker Branding. Thank you for watching. I'm going to go die now.
Rip.
Wow, this.
One of the challenges for the next few years is we have to convince the American public, because the administration, it doesn't matter anymore. So like somebody linked this in chat. Norwegian fuel supplier cuts off U.S. Navy, urges others to join. Haltback Bunkers. Haltbach Bunkers, a major Norwegian fuel company, has stopped refueling U.S. Navy vessels and is urging European firms to do the same. Like, for the current admin, this is just a win. Because it means, oh, cool, well, we're just not going to waste money sending our Navy anywhere. We're not going to send them anywhere, and that's fine. But I think you just have to give a bunch of W's to the current administration, and then you have to hope that the American people don't want America to just fully withdraw from the entire world stage. Did I watch the Warren Smith video yet? The one that the short one he made about me, the one yesterday? Yeah, we did. He disrespected the United States of America and its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. And they shot a fucking video? Why does Trump want to increase defense spending when he's pursuing detent? With China and Russia? I don't know. You're not asking the right, or you're not oriented in the right direction. I don't think there's like a coherent thing. I think we just like say things and then we'll do things. Like they want to cut the Pentagon because smaller budget good, but they want to boost the military because big military good. Even though these things are contradictory, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's not about like what is real or what exists in reality. It's just kind of like saying the things that make people feel good in the moment, and then you just move on to the next thing. So I think that it's probably detente. It's probably a waste of time trying to appeal to the current administration, and you just have to appeal, I guess, to the American people, hopefully. You only need like a few percentage points of people to make the party unviable, right? The Republican Party, that's all you have to do. You don't have to like convince like 50% of them, so. Are you aware of JIT versus AOT compilers? Yeah, but I don't think anybody really uses JIT anymore. The AOT ones are just way more, they're just easier to deploy across an entire network, I think, and have everybody, I don't even know what those mean. Attack on Titan versus JIT. I don't know what either of that is. Just in time versus ahead of time. Okay. But convincing the general public means going against all news everywhere at this point. True. We need state governors to step the fuck up. Where's Gavin Newsom? Yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot of like big things that have to change, and I just don't see. I don't even know if the will to change some of these things exists, so it's hard. Like, I think that Democrats, but like this is so hard because they love this messaging so much, or at least the ones that I see are the progressive. The Democrats need to drop all the weird shit about like the billionaires and the donors. Like, it's not time to cut potential funders out of the party that might align with you in interests. Like, this is so stupid, the fixation on that. And the Jesus, I don't know, man. It's a lot of dumb shit. All the left media that doesn't care about actual elections is fucking stupid. The silence from past presidents is the worst. It makes it seem way more normalized. Past presidents typically don't speak on current things. I believe, did Bush not support Trump in 2016 or was it 2020? And that was considered, I think, a pretty big deal that he said that. Like, I think past presidents just typically aren't involved in current politics. It's just like a norm, basically. But I mean, yeah, they should be now for sure. Deepak interviewed top 10 congressmen and senators the past 2 weeks, Raskin, Warren, etc., and literally none of them have a fucking path forward. I like the Raskin guy. I don't know if he's like a good politician or whatever. I mean, he wins elections, but I just like him because he seems like he knows his shit. But nobody cares about that anymore, so. To be fair, Trump did win on that populism shit. It makes sense why leftists want their own populist message. Maybe a little. I don't know why the right is more, but it's more than just the populism though. It's all the crazy shit on top of it.
Watch this guy.
How long ago was his interview with Raskin? I'm just curious. Because we watched Brian Tyler Cohen interview him. Leftists have much better propaganda than center-left liberals, and they can harness populism much like Trump does. Yeah, but they don't, like... It doesn't translate electorally, like, anywhere. Like, where are all of our communist socialist fucking candidates winning elections? I think countering the Putin just wants peace narrative is an important one. Maybe going over all the different peace agreements that he's brought. But these people don't care about the facts. That's the difficult thing. Like, what do I, like, every time it's like, oh, well, we just need to show them all of these things in the past. Like, they won't believe in any of it, right? Or they only need, remember, on the conspiracy brain on the right, they only need one thing. They can be wrong on 19 things. They only need one right thing, and that's it for them. And then on the other side can be right about 19 things and wrong on one thing, and that's enough for them to discount it. Like, there's something else going on. Yeah. What is this?
A man charged with capital murder of a Texas police officer has been released on bond. The first time someone has been released with such serious charges in over 20 years. Now a Texas judge is facing blowback after setting bond for the second suspect charged in the case.
Unfortunately, Judge Hillary Unger is a rogue judge and notorious for releasing repeat offenders who go out and kill other members of our community. We've got to stop these rogue judges. I was attacked as DA for fighting against this type of activity by our local judges. Right now, we appear to have a DA that's complacent and okay with it.
Here to help us look at this rogue judge's record is Fraternal Order of Police National Vice President and current Houston police officer, Joe Gamaldi. Thank you for joining us, officer. So just help us break this down for us, because it's kind of mind-boggling to think that a judge would grant bail to someone who's accused of killing a cop.
Yeah, well, let's be clear. This judge is an absolute disgrace, and she doesn't even deserve to be called a judge. She's just an activist masquerading as one. I mean, to allow these two dirtbags who are charged with viciously ambushing and shooting Deputy Escada over 41 times to make sure they finish the job. I mean, to give these individuals bond is unconscionable. I've never seen anything like it in my 20 years in law enforcement. But as shocking as it is completely on brand for this so-called judge who has made a habit out of letting cold-blooded murderers walk out of her courtroom. She let another monster out on a murder bond who went on to rob a 71-year-old woman and murder her by... And along with so many others are on Judge Unger's hands. If she had a shred of integrity, which I assure you she does not, she would resign in shame for this.
So when this case came up and you realized that this accused cop killer had been granted parole, you already knew Judge Hillary Unger? You knew her reputation?
Yeah, everyone is familiar with Judge Unger here in Harris County because she has made a habit of letting violent criminals out over and over again, and it completely erodes the trust that law enforcement has in the criminal justice system.
What is the Houston Chronicle? Can't you have to subscribe? Come on, seriously?
But more importantly, it completely violates the trust of the community. How are we expected to investigate cases? How are we expected to get witnesses to come forward if the spineless judge is going to let the suspects right back out on the street before the paperwork's dry? And what this judge is really signaling to the community is that she cares more about her revolving door criminal justice ideology than she does about the community members out in our streets.
So what does it say to your fellow officers who have to actually go out there and enforce the law, knowing that judges like this are just going to let an accused cop killer back out on the street?
How many January 6 people were pardoned again? Many of whom were fighting with federal officers.
What it really says is that she doesn't give a damn about police officers. She doesn't care that we put our lives on the line every single day to protect our communities. She doesn't give a damn about the community if you're willing to let murderers out over and over and over again. And you know what? Someone needs to stick a microphone in her face and ask, do you feel a shred of responsibility for the people that you have let out and then have gone on to rob, murder, assault, rape innocent people in our communities? And you know what? She's up for the election in 2026, so the members of Harris County need to make sure they vote her ass out.
Officer Joe Gamaldi, thank you for joining us.
Okay, somebody wanted me to go over this. I linked it in chat, but I can't access the fucking article, and I'm not subscribing to a random city's fucking media thing. But apparently, this said, Unger reminded both sides in court that the Harris County District Attorney's Office, then led by Kim Ogg, never followed through on holding a hearing to hold Francis without bail, forcing her to set an amount in his case last November based on his financial affidavit showing limited assets. The judge, a two-term Democrat, previously targeted by the Stop Houston Murders PAC, told the Chronicle on Wednesday she was constitutionally obligated to set a bond in Francis's case. Yeah, it sounds like, just going on that paragraph, unless there's something else, it sounds like the judge has to set a bond, unless the DA has a hearing or something showing why that person shouldn't be allowed to post bond at all, I guess. Wait, this says Judge Hillary Unger declined a no bond request from the former district attorney. Capital murder suspect charged in the killing of a Harris County sheriff's deputy was released on bond Tuesday, even though prosecutors had requested that he be held without bond last year. Wait, so which article is correct? I can't read the Houston Chronicle shit article, so. According to records from the Harris County District Office the District Clerk's Office, Judge Hillary Unger of the 248th District Criminal Court set bonds for Dramone Eugene Francis, age 27, at $500,000 for capital murder, $500,000 for tampering with evidence. One of two suspects in this murder. Both Palmer and Francis were charged with capital murder. Palmer is being held without bond. Oh, wait. So, Raphael Lemaitre, a spokesperson for new Harris County District Attorney Sean Terre, and formerly employed by Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo. What the fuck are these names? Blamed former DA Kim Ogg. He said that prosecutors had failed to follow through on a request for no bond with a hearing, so the court could not lawfully hold him on no bond. Ogg told the Texan that her office always filed motions asking for a hearing, but that it was up to the judge to set the hearing and a trial. Harris County's bail bond practices were featured in a recent Texas Senate committee hearing on bail reform measures. Jesus. Hoffman cited research indicating that since 2021, so it's like 3-4 years, there had been 162 homicide cases filed in the county for which the defendant was out on bond. That's pretty wild if that's true. Jesus. Christ. Here's the PDF. Judge sets $3 million bail for accused Harris County deputy shooter. Well, I feel like the DA can probably request a hearing, and then it's up to the court to schedule it. I don't know if the judge schedules things or if there are other people that do it, but I don't know I don't know whose fault it is. I guess you'd have to just post receipts. I don't think I understand bail destiny. How are these people affording these massive bail prices? Most of them just got really lucky in crypto. Or they go to a bail bondsman where you can post a percentage of bail and then they loan you basically the money to post bail to the courthouse, yeah. Ugh. There are plugins that basically work as a site hub, but for news sites that are fantastic. Oh. Scheduling is usually done by the judge with coordination between prosecution/defense, at least in my county. The judge themselves does scheduling? I feel like that would be like an assistant or something. Didn't conservative judges keep saying that norms and decorum are so important for the judicial branch? Exactly, because that branch holds no way to enforce its will. Do you think they will come out and defend the branch's authority, or will they roll over? Huh, good one. What is the what's our next deadline for this TRO shit? Country, not county. Oh. Oh, so by noon yesterday, we read their filings, and then who knows how long it'll take for them to go over this. March 10th. This person said eating fast food is cheaper than buying food from grocery stores.
What even is the point of...
You linked me a 5-year-old video from Adam. If the Supreme Court blocks the TRO, I just don't know why you would follow any law in this country. I don't know why the fuck you would ever do anything. Well, as long as you're being loyal to Trump. Like, if you're going to commit crime or do something, you should just wear a MAGA hat, right?
Cooking at home. This has been a non-question for most humans, because for most of human history, the only person who was going to turn this into this into this was you. I prepare food because I want to eat. That's been all of the reasoning that most humans who've ever lived have ever needed. From our hunter-gatherer life to our agrarian life, and even to much of our industrial life, the only person who was going to feed you was most likely going to be you, or someone in your immediate social group. But now, for people like me, living in highly developed post-industrial economies, because I want to eat is probably one of the weakest reasons for cooking, in my opinion. We live in a world where this chicken costs about the same as this chicken from the same store. And in this world, I think it really pays to interrogate why we would buy this one. Field trip to Oxford, and not that Oxford, Oxford, Georgia, where Dr. Derek Shannon is a sociology professor at Oxford College of Emory University. He specializes in things like political economy and teaches a course here that's quite relevant to our discussion.
The sociology of food course that I designed is a part of what Oxford College calls our theory, practice, service, learning program.
This is true. There is like there's this middle ground of food that you can buy, which is, I don't even know how you would describe this, but people think you can either buy groceries or you can get like fast food. But grocery stores usually sell like prepared food, kind of. It's not like fast food, but it's not, you're not buying a chicken and then preparing it yourself. They have it, it'll be like in warmed bags or stuff like that. Is it ready to make maybe? I don't know.
Part of what my students do is work here on Oxford's organic farm.
Look at this place. Even in the middle of February, it's beautiful. The apple trees over here are blooming. They've got all these garlic and onions and cabbage going. But anyway, if you ask Dr. Shannon what's the point of cooking at home these days, the first thing he says is...
because it's an enjoyable and desirable activity. Some people like cooking, just like some people like knitting, and you can go buy a sweater for cheaper than the materials that it might take.
Indeed. The first good reason for cooking at...
Also, did he ever comment on these old videos? Why is his lighting so insane? Holy shit.
Home is because it's fun. This is, in my view, an unassailable reason for doing anything that isn't particularly harmful to others or particularly harmful to your long-term fun-having capacity. I recently put out a recipe for French macaroons in which I encouraged people to loosen their expectations about how these things should look. If you just care about how they taste and leave the cosmetics up to fate, they become as easy to make as they are delicious. But if you derive pleasure from working to create cosmetically perfect macaroons, I think that's great. You have my blessing, not that you asked for it. My argument is only this. If it's making you miserable to try to create perfectly round, smooth domes with perfectly ruffled feet, then stop. Make the ugly ones or buy the beautiful ones. Also, maybe try to think a little bit more critically about whether the things that you do really do make you happy. This is something I try really hard to do, especially with regard to my creative work. Am I struggling to make this thing because I enjoy the challenge? Good reason. Am I struggling to make this thing because I'll learn something valuable from the struggle? Good reason. Part of the reason I spent so much time and effort trying to recreate the New York-style pizza from my youth was pure curiosity. I wanted to understand on a tactile level what makes that stuff taste the way it does. Am I working to make this thing because the end product will give me joy? Good reason. I think this chicken tastes way better than this chicken. Am I going through hell to make this thing because someone will give me money for it at the end? You gotta get paid, son. Am I slaving over this thing because it will make someone else happy? Really good reason. Maybe the best reason. Am I killing myself on this thing because I think it will impress someone? Not such a good reason, in my opinion. Look, this is a conversation about the meaning of life we're having here, so reasonable people are going to disagree. But in my view, cooking should be about about nourishing and nurturing people, including yourself. It should be about giving people pleasure, including yourself. And while you might be able to make yourself happy by dazzling people with your skills, I would question whether that's in the interest of your long-term happiness or maybe your deeper, more meaningful happiness. And I would definitely wonder if it might be pleasure that you're taking at someone else's expense. This phenomenon was brilliantly crystallized in the 2010 South Park episode, Cream Fraiche. I can't play too much of it for you without angering the copyright gods, but you should go watch it. The Hulu link is in the description.
Every time you watch cooking shows, you stay up all night trying to copy what they made.
Well, I'm sorry if there's something wrong with me helping out with the cooking.
Can I have a Pop-Tart?
So in this instance, the harm is relatively mild, right? Randy's family is annoyed that he is flexing on them rather than providing them with the food they actually want to eat. And they're annoyed that he is filling the house with misery and stress and dirty dishes in the process. Mild harm. I do think that there's some more serious or pernicious harm associated with this phenomenon.
One of the things that sociologists of food study is how a range of relations of inequality are embedded in our food supply chain. And that's not just buying, it also includes preparing, cooking, and so on. And it's not very difficult to find differentials in who has to cook and who gets to cook and when, who gets prestige in the act of cooking and who doesn't, and so on.
My little brother is an RFK fan now and only eats steak and drinks raw milk all day. What do I do? I mean, it's hard, but ideally, if you live out in the country, you got to take him out back. Maybe feed him his favorite meal. And when he's not looking, give him liberal propaganda. Hold on, let me grab a Red Bull. Fuck, it gets cold in this room. One of the things that's triggering me the most, I watched this again last night off stream because I was just so triggered.
Of Elon Musk.
Our life. I grew up in.
I listen to this again and again. It's more annoying to me that was it Milo or was it Flint? One of the two archaeologist guys, I think it was Flint. He brought up this idea, and it's been growing in my mind. It's this concept of forbidden knowledge that
because of health issues.
People like act when people will say something and they'll be like, "Yeah, so my sometimes my zipper when I zip up my jacket, sometimes it's really hard to like start it like at the very bottom, like it gets stuck and it's so annoying, and you're not allowed to talk about this." I'm like, what do you mean you're not allowed to talk about this? What do you mean? What are you talking about? One of the guys did it on Joe Rogan. Was it Brett Weinstein or was it somebody else? Where they were like, yeah, the only time I was sick, or was it JD Vance? Who was it? He was like, the only time I got real sick was when I got the booster, and they don't tell you that. And it's like, what? Every doctor, every single person in society was talking about how like, ooh, the booster, that's rough. The booster is rougher than the first vax. The booster is rougher than getting some of the variant. Every single person in the country was talking about that. What do you mean they don't allow you to talk about this? I'm sorry. I went back and I listened to this lady's story, and it's just like, this is just unbelievable to me. So she's 34 years old. Okay.
Something that happened to me over the course of this past decade. I was put on birth control in 2018.
So when she was what, like 28 years old, she got on birth control. Okay, 27, 28 years old.
Because of health issues.
Because of health issues, okay.
And it completely upended my life.
Why did you keep taking it? No one is forcing you. You're an adult. When she first told the story, I was thinking like, okay, maybe they gave it to her when she was 15 and she was too dumb to stop. If it was giving her, whatever. 27, 28 years old.
How so? I really never said this before, but it's really had such a traumatic and tremendous impact on my thinking. I feel like I wasted 5 years of my life because I was on birth control.
You were an adult, and not like an adult like 18, 19. You were like in your late 20s. Why didn't you just stop taking it?
And when I decided to come off it in May 2023, I felt like I reclaimed my life.
Why is this so dramatic? Well, how did you decide? Did you escape the man force feeding you every morning? Well, like,
and realize that conservatives were right about birth control. You know.
Oh, and then I love that conservatives were right. Oh, so birth control is an evil, malicious thing that's being force fed to children in order to turn them into premature fuck machines, because that's basically like the conservative talking point when it comes to birth control. So they were right because at 27 or 28, a doctor recommended you birth control and you took it and you were too stupid to stop taking it when you had bad reactions to it. Okay.
You know, it completely hijacks your hormones. It makes you extremely anxious. And I would just expect it to just take it without question. I tried to express my concerns to my doctor, but she was living in this liberal ideology where you could just medicate yourself to, you know, to recovery. But now that I've been off it for 2 years, I feel like I'm a new woman. I finally have full control over my mind. And I'm finally free to be who I am without being shackled.
So, Lindy.
Like, I'm sorry. This story is going to live in my mind for way too long. I watched this like 2-3 times again last night. I'm trying to think of how many but the reality is, and then at the end, I always come back to this, like, oh, this is all like bullshit. This is all fake bullshit. Fuck. So I don't know what I'm even thinking about. Am I thinking of like the listener? Does nobody think about these stories? Like, what am I listening to right now? Or have you watched the Neil Ferguson and Sam Harrison new episode from yesterday? No. You don't take birth control? I do. The liberal doctor makes me do it. If you take birth control as a guy and then you come in the girl, the birth control goes into the girl and then she doesn't get pregnant. That's the whole point. Do you think IQ or EQ is more important? I don't even know if EQ is a real thing. It feels like a meme thing. Theo Von deleted his post shitting on Zelensky. Good sign? Is it? He probably just got some pushback and stopped, but the fact that he even has that opinion is fucking crazy. God, this is so fucking cursed. Holy shit. What if Putin breaks the ceasefire? Whoa! What if a bomb drops on your head? Like, what a crazy, stupid. People listen to this stuff in passing and trust the host to either push back or not bring on guests who lie. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess you just have to be of a certain, like, I don't want to say low education, because it's not really accurate. It's not what we're talking about. If you just don't have any baseline information about a topic, it's very easy for you to be misled, I guess. When you see J.D. Vance's tweets and fully understand why his mom traded him for some perk 30s. Was his mom a crackhead or something? I regret engaging in the political dumpster fire of the Trump-Zelensky meeting. I simply want to do my small part in building bridges and pushing for long-lasting peace. I'll try to focus on that through long-formed, nuanced conversation with people on all sides. Every day, I go to bed, every night, praying for the deep state to save us. Please, Deep State, where are you? Please, please, Deep State, where are you at? Come, please.
And this is my podcast. The following is
We've already watched this video
a
before.
conversation with Satan, acclaimed CEO, entrepreneur, dear friend, and author of the recent best-selling memoirs, From the Depths I Shall Tempt Your Soul. Formerly known as Lucifer, Satan and I have become good friends, bonding over our shared love of literature, quantum physics, and creative methods of torture, like this podcast. As always, I hope to approach this discussion with empathy, to bridge the gap, promote open dialogue, and let love triumph over all, so that I can secure more AG1 partnerships. I'm Lex, and this is my podcast that I made.
I'll start talking.
29 minutes, bro.
Well, today seemed to be a tempest in a teacup with world historical geopolitical consequences. That seems like a contradiction in terms in many ways, but I think...
As a speaker of both, I can tell you Zelensky's English is better than Lex's Russian. I still can't believe Lex had the audacity to interview my Russian. Bro, that was so cringe. It makes me want to interview some like Mexican diplomat or some bullshit and try to like flex my high school 1 Spanish. I want to have this conversation in Spanish because I think that it's better so we can understand each other, and then just like have a fucking translator for every other sentence. Oh my God.
That's what just happened. So my question is, was it a setup? Was it planned? Or are we really...
The whole thing, I'm not going to watch this whole video on this. The whole telling moment to me, but it's hard because Trump is so stupid that he could say fucking anything anyway. The whole telling thing to me was that line that he gave of, this is why we let it, I'm glad I let this go on for so long. I think that kind of gives the way. Fuck, was it not in this?
The United States of
Can
America.
I reiterate for the 7 millionth time, although it doesn't matter and I'm just a boomer screaming into the wind, how much I hate searching on the internet these days. We have all the advanced technology and so much shit. 10 years ago, if I would have searched for like Trump Zelensky interview or whatever, or meeting, I would have gotten the full video and like my top 5 results. Okay, here we get this. I just needed one more word, I guess. And now it's like clips and all this other stupid shit and what the and reactions and fucking Christ. But okay, we needed to add meeting here, I guess. All the LLMs and AI in the world couldn't figure out what I was looking for. Thank you. Fuck, what did he say? I believe it was at the very end. What did he... Yeah, but what were the words so I can find it? Yeah, I thought it was like glad. I'm glad I let this go on. Oh, kept this going. There it is.
When you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful.
Like, for him to say that after this blow up is like, feels so malicious. That's an insanely malicious statement. Which makes me feel like this was... I don't know, man. Would they really have like planned the whole thing out? I wouldn't put it past them.
With the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, you know. I'd be so tough, but you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I will respond to this. So look, For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity.
Can you guys please stop saying they were ready to make the deal? Unless you can link me an article showing that Zelensky was ready to sign a deal with no security guarantees, you are wrong and retarded. I know that you want to link something that says, oh, Zelensky was going to Washington to sign the deal. Bullshit. There is no shot he was going to sign any deal that didn't have some kind of security guarantee baked in. I don't believe that. It would be pointless. It wouldn't be worth anything. I don't believe that that's the case, that he was probably going there with the hopes of signing one, but it was after getting some kind of security guarantee from the United States.
Is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask?
This is ridiculous, dude. It's nice to finally have some transparency. The transparency is truly welcome. What do you think explains the liberal media refusing to hold Trump accountable? I think that, I don't know. I think that they're still a little bit traumatized from being accused of like having Trump derangement syndrome over and over again. Or just exhaustion and it not feeling meaningful. Wait, what? You should watch that Sam Harris video. The other dude's takes are crazy. Does he post it on YouTube? I guess it's pretty simple. Putin helped plan it out, got some questions that would trigger him, then told him to let him cook and seemed ungrateful.
Country, and I think it's ridiculous that we're focused on this border in Ukraine. I got to be honest with you. I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another. Country, and I think it's ridiculous that we're focused on this border in Ukraine. I got to be honest with you. I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another.
Right, let's bring in Tyson Barker, a foreign policy analyst who most recently served in the Biden-Harris administration working on Ukraine. Tyson, good to have you with us. If we can start from the beginning, what's your reaction to what happened in the Oval Office?
Well, it's clearly a moment that will live in infamy. President Trump said it himself, and I think it's consistent with his leadership style at the end that this will make for good television. And I think it was, in some ways, a produced moment. I think in the run-up to
him saying that at the end, I feel like it reinforced everything I said about it. At the end of the day, these guys are influencers. Trump is the first influencer president. And all of this at the end of the day is just for clicks and attention.
This visit by President Zelensky, there were questions around whether the critical minerals agreement was being negotiated in good faith by the Trump administration. And the intervention by Vice President J.D. Vance in the Oval Office is, to be quite frank, in this way, highly irregular. So I think that there needs to be consideration as to whether or not this was actually premeditated.
One of the many things you allude to in this debate that was laid bare was the personality of Vice President J.D. Vance. What did you make of his involvement in last night's clash?
Well, he has become the tip of the spear for a specific faction of the Trump administration. He is somebody who speaks in an unvarnished way to the alt-right. He is somebody who's connected to alt-right media, and we see him trying to basically assume that role as ambassador for the bad cop side of the administration in multiple iterations, including at the Munich Security Conference a couple weeks ago. So that was
JD Vance. Am I missing things? Does he do alt-right stuff?
Consistent with this role, but it's hard to imagine a situation in which he makes such a statement, and it was quite condescending, to be quite honest, to President Zelensky in the Oval Office without the explicit, predetermined permission of his boss.
And yet, Tyson, Zelensky says that his relations with the United States can still be repaired. As hard as it seems to imagine at this moment, how vital is it for the transatlantic relationship that Ukraine and US kiss and make?
I mean, it's the Peter Thiel types.
Up here.
It's absolutely essential. The Ukrainians' war effort is completely dependent on the provision of materiel and economic support from the United States. There are still a number of lines of effort. Some have been paused, as we saw emergency energy assistance.
Do you think some EU countries will or should cancel weapons deals with the US in future days and weeks? Maybe, yeah, hopefully. I think if Europe is going to move, listen to me, Europe, okay, as the American whisperer. If Europe is going to make moves to punish the United States for Trump's actions, it has to be as soon as fucking possible. Because if you drag your fucking feet on it, and if you wait for years, and in 3 or 4 years, you finally start to do it, people aren't going to feel the effects during Trump's administration. It can't be this kicking and dragging and whatever, and waiting and, you know, whatever. And then 2 or 3 years, I was like, okay, fuck, we got to get serious about this. Like, there needs to be a strong message right now. Like, it has to happen very soon, you know? Yeah, I saw that Norway is refusing to refuel our shit. I think there should also be a huge boycott of everything having to do with like Tesla and shit. I think people should boycott the fuck out of that. Although I guess it's hard because if you already have a car, I mean, if you have a Tesla, you can trade it in anyway. Fuck it. You're probably wealthy enough to do it. Do you think that the average American cares about the suffering and deaths over there? Like, is this a possible valid attack in the midterms, or will it just not matter? I think in a way, Ukraine doesn't really matter at all to people in the United States. And I think in another way, it's like the most important thing to people in the United States. I think that the actual factual matters of things don't matter. Nobody really cares. Nobody knows what's going on. But the story and the narrative of what America is or what America should be or what America represents to the world, I think Americans do care about that. But again, the issue is that the concept of America has taken such a beating. It was basically, as much as I hate to say it, it was only the neocons that were holding up this concept of America being a good country. And it was like the left that was like, well, no, slavery and Christopher Columbus was a bad guy and we fucked over the natives and America's racist and evil and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, you know, America, the neocons are there to simp for our big businesses and to simp for America. And the left is there to push us forward socially and, you know, hold us accountable, I guess, whatever. But now that the right doesn't like this country and it's like, fuck America, fuck the big business and fuck everything else, the left is not ready to pick up that banner. Even though Kamala kind of tried in being more positive about the United States, the feeling doesn't feel genuine or authentic there yet, so.
Was paused yesterday. The provision of future weapons is under consideration to be paused. This would have an extremely deleterious effect on Ukraine's war effort. But I have to say, and this is where Zelensky has a unique brand of leadership, and the man has stared death in the face and has a spine of steel, that they are not going to do anything everything to win the U.S. support. What the Trump administration has done in this case and what President Trump has said is basically, you are now at an asymmetric and weakened negotiating position. You are not in a position to ask for concessions in any kind of ceasefire.
Do you just reject the idea of the mineral rights leading to this administration's desire for security of Ukraine? I don't think mineral rights are a big deal at all. It's just some random retarded negotiating chip that they can use to bargain for whatever. I don't think it matters that much. And it's not like there are that many. Like, Ukraine doesn't even have that much in terms of exploitable resources for how much Trump seems to be making a big deal out of it. It's just not.
Position. You are not in a position to ask for concessions in any kind of ceasefire. And that seems to indicate that Trump is biasing himself in any peace negotiations on the side of Vladimir Putin. And that is obviously very worrying for not only Ukraine, but also Ukraine's European allies who came out in force in the media yesterday after this event to reaffirm their support for Ukraine.
Yeah, Trump said Ukraine didn't have the cards to play. It did feel like he was also talking to Europe. Does Europe have any cards to play? If not, how does Europe arm itself with those cards to play in these negotiations?
Well, Ukraine's future and the beginning of this conflict, which started actually in 2014, was all about the movement of Ukraine geopolitically from Russia's orbit to the European Union's orbit. And
why does the Israel-Palestine conflict matter more to Americans than Ukraine? Older Americans have a very favorable view of Israel. I don't think Ukraine is the same. Most people, older people would have just saw it as part of the former Soviet Union and then its own country that had a lot of corruption issues, which it did for a long time. So we don't have that same attachment to Ukraine or the people of Ukraine or religiously to Ukraine like we do with Israel.
And in fact, if you remember the Maidan revolution, it was EU flags that the Ukrainians were waving on the Maidan. The European Union continues, with the UK and others, continues to be the biggest provider of assistance for Ukraine, economic and security, well, less security assistance, but economic assistance. But without the United States being a co-pillar in that, that would be a lot for Europe, Japan, Canada, and the UK to compensate. So the question is, do they have it within their stocks financially and also militarily to start to try to make that up? I think that there's thinking about that. You see that with Friedrich Merz's statement after the election, but it's going to have to happen on an extremely accelerated timetable.
Foreign policy expert Tyson Barker, it's been great to get your input. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else having a thing where in DGG chat, I don't know if this is in other places, Google Chrome doesn't make your link purple after you click it? Why? The fuck?
A very good
chat
question.
Because you guys make everything sound so simple, sound so like to face value. It's like back in the days when there was COVID and the vaccines. A lot of vaccines went to waste. You know that? A lot of the vaccines went to nothing because they just expired. They went to nothing. Why? Because they had to give our their own people, right?
Do you think the mineral deal is more to do with Trump needing to be seen as a win? Like it's something to accept purely for optics and Zelensky wasn't properly clued in about this? I just don't know. I think Trump is just trying to extract as much from any situation ever. Like, don't let a good crisis go to waste, like that saying, except on steroids. I think that's just what it feels like.
The vaccinate themselves, right? The U.S. people, right? They have certain supplies, certain predictions, and a lot of it was superfluous, right? But that's fine, right? That's just the cost of business, right? That is just. But then, of course, you're gonna come across people who are saying, "Yo, dude, why do we have like 3 times the amount that we need? A lot of it goes to waste. Just send it to other country." Yeah, that's fucking brain dead. That's a minus IQ dumbass shit. That's because that's just the way it is. Like, oh man, if people say question mark, I can't. Wait, nobody said that. Have you guys completely forgotten?
How is this relating to this?
Dude. I don't know how much it's gonna cost exactly to go out and eat dinner. I'm gonna bring $60, okay? Oh wow. Guys, you bought a steak because you're very hungry. Oh my god, dude. It's too much food. You didn't eat the whole steak. There's 20% left of the steak. Dude, you should have gotten a smaller steak. Dude, dumbass. You should have ordered, obviously, the smaller one. No, sometimes there's a little bit over, and you can't send it.
My coworkers are all 3 flavors of Trump supporters. I went really hard on them before the election. Do you think I should change tact and try to be softer? I waffle back and forth a lot. For people in your personal life, you should always be soft, unless you don't care about their opinion. You'll never change somebody's mind in real life by being like super brutal. You always have to just kind of be soft, ask questions, poke and prod like very gently, and try to appeal to their values. Like, oh, when you voted for Trump, did you think he would have said this about Zelensky? Or do you think it's a good thing? Like, should America play a role here? Or do we feel like Russia's winning? Or I don't know. Like, you have to be gentle in real life.
It's gonna rot, and it goes to waste. It's just, a massive portion of food in the United States, like meat, goes to waste. It goes to waste. It's just what it is.
It's a pathway to peace. It's a pathway to getting something solved. And I feel that as the head of this country, I have an obligation to do that. Plus, we're very much involved. We got involved. It's too bad we got involved. There should have been no involvement because there should have been no war. And there shouldn't have been October 7th. That would have never happened. As you know, Iran was...
This is minutes. I don't know what you want me to watch this for. What?
You know what's actually crazy? I love when people say, "Oh, dude, too much money in military. Put $0 in what's my $10 goal going to military?" The same people that say that are like, "Dude, send 1,000 trillion to every nation to help with the wars going on." But you can have it both ways. It's not something you can have both ways. But I can see how maybe the rock's gone to your brain. It's gone inside.
This is what you told me back then. Will Ukrainians survive without Congress support? Of course.
Explain.
Not all of us. It will be tragic.
I'm not wrong. Explain.
Okay. When are you doing call-ins? For what? Wait, is this photoshopped? This isn't real, right? Your link issue is solved by disabling this Chrome flag. What the fuck? Disabled? Relaunch. Oh my god. He did it. What a god.
All of America. Hey, Sam, why don't you answer a quick question? Why are the richest counties in all of America the 5 major counties in the DMV right around Washington, D.C.? Can you explain to me, what do those counties do? Are there some mineral deposits there I don't know about? Did they strike oil? Is there some type of rich industry that's created around Washington? Maybe you can answer me that question. Why are those people so filthy rich? You don't seem to like rich people, so maybe explain why.
I can answer that question.
What does DC
Do you want me to
make,
answer it?
Sam?
It's lobbyists. It's lobbyists like all of the ones that have been appointed to Donald Trump's cabinet and to political positions. Rich lobbyists for all sorts of these industries that you supposedly have a problem with. I mean, that's where all the money is being made. It's not being made by federal workers. It's being made by lobbyists. And those are sent by corporations. If you will join me as...
What is the average salary of a lobbyist? I feel like there's no way these guys make like millions and millions of dollars now. Aren't there a lot of like... Am I making this up? Aren't there a lot of tech and defense jobs around the DC area? I know that I lived with at least one person who worked for a private military contractor up there. Like, I feel like there are a lot of
part of my campaign that you're interested in me running the Democratic Party, in calling for Donald Trump to fire all of the lobbyists he's hired so far, it wouldn't leave many people left in the government. But
is there a better line of attack against Benny Johnson in this case, though? The most boring thing to me, the thing that pushes me out from wanting to do politics the most, is when people have two facts and they present them as though there's this huge causal link between the two and they haven't even begun to do the work to establish that. It's genuinely one of the most boring things and one of the least, I just hate it. To say that there are wealthy zip codes around DC, like, isn't all of New England relatively wealthy? Like, isn't that whole area up there? Like, I feel like I've been to like Boston and areas in that DMV area, Delaware, Maryland. I feel like there's a lot of wealthy areas in that place. I don't even know if the 5 most wealthy things are there. I could look it up, but like, if the argument you're trying to make is, are you trying to make the argument that these people are getting rich in public office? Then demonstrate that. You're a journalist. Wipe the smug, shit-eating fucking retard grin off of your Russian-compensated face, because that's what he got paid for, was to do Russian propaganda, which is what he does in the United States, and do some fucking homework for once in your life. Treat your job like an actual serious endeavor and do some research and actually demonstrate with some sort of proof that people are getting paid a disproportionate amount of money for working in DC, instead of just tying in two facts together that my 13-year-old son could find during recess. It's fucking retarded. So I don't know. What would my response be? This is just, it's the dumbest, most like,